Hello guys, in this video I want to share the VHS post-process. It's the feature request I was asked to make 2 months ago, and here it is. Quick demonstration one more time, and it's actually the combination of several effects. It's the frame sleeping, color bleeding or the chromatic aberration. It's also some sort of type degradation or the worn effect that can be applied over the whole scene, but I actually made it on the bottom. As you can see, I do have the time date. It's the widget and it's also affected by this post process. Also the film grain or a sort of shimmering noise which covers the whole scene also. Some sort of the horizontal line artifacts, and as you can see, a little bit blur, and to make it look as we are looking through the camcorder, we also have the aspect ratio black stripes on each side of our screen, and we have the custom DOF. So as you can see, objects that are far from us are blurred too. So, and one more thing is a little bit the situation with the tint. So now we can start with the post process. As you can see, this whole graph is everything that we need to make our post process. Material domain is post process, and the blendable location I use replacing the tone mapper because it suits my purposes better. Depending on which type of blendable location you use, you need to adjust some of these attributes in a more freaky way with the higher or lower values. Also, replacing the tone mapper actually withdraws the final color of the post-process volume that you have on your scene. So, let's start with the color bleeding or the chromatic aberration. It's actually, let me show you, this setup. So, what do we need? We need the text coordinates. We also need to have the attribute called color bleeding offset. The value is actually quite low, so we don't need to have much distortion. And we need to have a sort of RGB channels separated. Then we apply this offset, pixel offset for the red and the green channel, and we leave the blue one, the red and blue channel are changed, and green one is without any changes. Then we use make float, and this actually leads to this effect. So as you can see, if you go with the higher value, for instance, like this one, you see that we have so much distortion, so much color bleeding. And this one looks better. So, next thing is the frame sleep. It's this sort of horizontal line that is coming from the top of our screen to the bottom and distortion the whole frame. So basically it looks like this. I'll need to make it a little bit more obvious. So, as you can see, how to make it? We simply use texture coordinates and mask the green channel, so we have this sort of linear gradient. Then we subtract the time multiplied by a frame slip speed. So this one will return sort of gradient changing, not the gradient, but if we use the sign here, we will receive the smooth line that will be actually changing its coordinate over the time from top to bottom. Then we need to use the power, and here the power combined with the sign will return in making this straight line more thinner. So the higher value is, the thinner the line you will receive. Then you need to saturate and multiply it by a frame slip offset. So this one is the distortion that we will be making on our UV coordinate. Then we use append, and this one will return as the UV offset. This one is for U, this one is for V. So I also have the static switch parameter, so I can easily change this from my post-process instance. Yeah. Basically, if I want to have the frame slip, let me just demonstrate you. We need to get back with our values. Frame slip size, frame slip offset. Maybe a little bit like this. So if you need to have frame slip, we have it. If you don't need, simply uncheck this checkbox and voila, nothing happens. No frame slip. So back to our setup. To add the frame slip to our graph, we need to use the add before the color bleeding here, and that's how it will be applied. Next thing is the film grain. It's this one. As you know, I'm a big fan of the whole procedural approach, and I don't like to use textures. So to have the grain effect, we need to use the vector noise. There is the noise node also, but it's actually return not the cellular noise patterns. So to have it look like it's sort of big amounts of small rocks, like the sand particles, we need to use the vector noise. The cell noise is the cheaper one, and we need to actually change its position input. So screen align UV with this setup, so depending on the resolution of our and the spectral area of our screen, the size of our particles, of our small dots, will return the same size. So we multiplied by grain tiling, and we also use append with this setup. It's time multiplied by the node called refresh rate. So changing this one will actually, if we have time and refresh rate multiplied together, this one is 24 will come to the sort of movie frame rate. You can go with 50 and 60 depending on the refresh rates effect that you want to receive. So we use append to receive sort of vector and apply here to the vector noise. And this one will return, as you can see, this pattern. So we need to actually desaturate it. And as you can see, I do have one more static switch parameter. It's called worn area black and white. So depending also on the true or false effect, I can receive this one or this one kind of noise. It depends on what result you want to achieve. Once we have this one, we simply lerp between this result with the noise using the grain power. So this one will return something like this. Changing the grain power. If 1, it's the full grain. If it's 0, it's no grain. And if it's 0.2, you can see more grain effect, like old movies. So, what else? Yep, the worn effect. It's the effect of sort of frame or the type degradation. So I have the mask where I define which area I should cover with this effect. It's simply this operation. I multiply this one. Yep. So first of all, I need to define the area where I need to apply this effect. To make this, I simply mask my green channel from the texture coordinate and subtract the particular value. So this one will return me the ability to maintain like the zone where this effect is applied. So basically, the white one is where it will be applied, the black one where it won't. And let me show you how it works. Something like this. So we have the area. Now we need to have the effect. The effect is the combination of two noises. So it's basically the horizontal stripes. I use the same kind of operation I have here with the vector noise, but I can actually go with maybe the band operator, generated band, and simply use pen, but I thought of to show you the logic behind it is much better, also as educational purposes. So multiplying texture coordinate with this attribute will receive the tiling of our stripes. Also adding the same layout here, and append node here will return the stripes effect like this. Also the same as here, I can use the static switch parameter to define whether I like to have the colorized version of stripes or not. Then I subtract from this mask the result of this one to receive this sort of effect. So next thing is to lerp between like our post process. I'll skip the saturation out here just to show you the idea. So we have this one, we have our mask multiplied by our grain noise. So it looks like this. Let me show you. So here it is. And I guess I'll show you more like of the control. So something like this. Worn area. Yep. So we simply lerp between the final color, the final result of our color bleeding and frame slipping, with the result of masking out and multiplying two kinds of noises here with this one and saturation to actually stay in between 0 and 1. So this one will return this whole effect. So we will receive a combination of our effects controlled by this operation. And we are left with the saturation, desaturation. So basically desaturate this effect and next multiply by tint, and everything goes to the lerp. And also I do have sort of overall brightness to colorize the whole scene. And that's it. That's how this simple effect works. So one more time. And now I'll tell you some adjustments to this effect. I have the widget, which is called, sorry guys, that's my phone, WBP time. It's the retainer box which contains the simple text. Nice and fancy here, but here on the retainer box you can see that I have the effect material assigned. So if I use the retainer box, and you can see it from the description to this node, the child is returned as the render target, so I can use it inside my material to apply over this material the effect that I want. So I do have material VHS over the UMG. It's the user interface and translucent. This texture is the simple texture attribute, so simply just add texture, change it to parameter, leave the name as texture, so once you've used this one, this name will be used here. And because it's the render target, you need to modify it like the overall color, or if you have manipulations with the, as I have with all of my UVs, with the noise and everything else, you should go and change this to the UV input. So I do have some little changes. They are not the same. They are nearly the same that I have in my post-process, but depending on the size of the widget and the overall complexity, I just leave some sort of adjustment that I can make over this widget to make my post-process look good but not ideal, because there are a lot of work to do. So I have the frame sleep, and I have the worn area effect. This one. So nearly the same that I have here. So that's why I can create the material instance, adjust the same attributes in the way I need to, like what I need to it look like. And as you saw, one more time, I do have my text widget affected by this distortion effect. Simply as this, and construction script is simply I use today. It's the node that returns the date from my computer, format text, and just on the construct set the text to visualize the sort of time of day where the recording was taken. What about the black stripes on the aspect ratio as the aspect ratio attributes of this whole post-process? On the first-person character, I actually have the sine camera instead of the simple first-person camera, and this setup I use. So simply the location of this camera is the same that I have. So I inherit simply by copy pasting transform from here, simply pasting there. The next thing is to use full frame DSLR. So that's why if we play with the different type of aspect ratios, we'll receive the pretty much realistic sort of black stripes. Also, don't forget to use pawn control rotation, so we can control our ability to look up and down. And constraint aspect ratio, this should be checked. So without it, we won't receive the aspect ratio stripes. And also, current focal length is 18, so that's the same to receive as the FOV of 90 degrees. And the lower aperture is, it will receive a more bokeh effect, or like depth of field. So the higher value is, the more sharp image you will receive. So if I go with something like 1.4, you'll see a lot of blur of the objects that are far away. But if I go with the value of, for instance, 4, now you see that it's sharper. So play around with this and you will see what suits you better. Also, to make it work, I guess, more correctly, on the event graph here, I also have this sort of tutorial on my YouTube channel, but from side camera, I use set member in camera focus settings. I use focus method as tracking and self as my character to be the sort of dynamic object that should be tracked over the whole gameplay. So when I move, my focus will be dynamically changing. I guess that's it. That's the whole tutorial. So, one more thing left. On my game mode, but it can be added in any places where you like, I do have this kind of operation. On the when begin play, I execute the console command and set max FPS to be the same as I use it to have on the refresh rate of my post-process instance. So here. So if I go with 60, you can see that the pattern updating more frequently. So that's why I need to change it here too. Once it's done, now as you can see, I'm moving much smoothly, and the noise and everything else looks much faster. This sort of operation can be also adjusted, but with much more logic over. It's just the way how you can obtain it, so I can show you. And don't forget to use the end play execute console command back to 60, because if I use this one as, for instance, 20 and press play and don't return it to 60 again, it will actually I forgot the word. So it will change the frame rates of the editor also. So I hope you like this tutorial. I'll leave the link to this sample project under the description to this video. So as always, I have Discord channel, Patreon. So if you like, subscribe, leave your feedback, support me if you want, and see you soon.